Nigeria's Civil Aviation Authority launches investigation into Vice President Yemi Osinbajo helicopter crash landing. Dangote Group says refined petrol from its refinery would not be sold at federal government's regulated price. In international news, European Union stands fast on its decision not to renegotiate Brexit deal. And in sport, Nigeria Under-23 gets new coach.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. The Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority has launched an investigation into Saturday's crash landing in Kogi State of the helicopter carrying Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and his aides. NCAA spokesperson Sam Ajiroboye says the investigation is being conducted by the Accident Investigation Bureau, which has already deployed a team of investigators to the crash site to find out the immediate cause of the crash. The Nigeria's Employers Consultative Association has spoken up against the recurring delay in the passage of the national budget. The association says this has become an unacceptable and disheartening culture in the country. Director General of the association, Timothy Oluwole, says the importance of quick passage of the budget cannot be overemphasized. Oluwole says the earliest time a budget is passed was in 2016, and there is always a grave consequence on the economy when a budget is passed late. Oluwole advises the government at all levels to accord extreme importance to the early passage of the budget to avoid further casualties on the economy. The Minister of Education, Adamu, has confirmed on Sunday that students may return to classes this week. The minister says that disputes between the federal government and the Academic Staff Union of Universities has finally been resolved. Adamu says the academic unions and the federal government has virtually reached an agreement on all levels. The minister also confirmed the federal government has released monies to settle outstanding allowances and shortfalls. Disbursements will be done by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation. Adamu says MBTE has been directed to strengthen regulatory mechanism of the state polytechnics. Lagos APC leaders have intervened in the field between Governor Kumi Ambode and the leadership of the Lagos State House of Assembly, which snowballed into impeachment threats last week. Everything looks cheery after the meeting, which was attended by APC leader Bola Tinubu, members of the Governor's Advisory Council, APC governorship candidate Babajide Sanwo-Olu, House Speaker Modashiru Obasa, and other leaders. They've asked for more communication, consensus building, and understanding between both parties. The People's Democratic Party has kicked against the idea of a central collation center set up by INEC for the collation of results in the general elections. National chairman of the party, Uche Secondas, has asked INEC to shelve the idea which he described as tantamount to rigging the election before votes are cast. Secondas is alleging that INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, has succumbed to pressure from the ABC to create room for rigging. The Nigerian Air Force says its Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole has destroyed the Islamic State of West African Province Logistics Base near Arege in Borno State. Air Commodore Ibikunle Daramola says the operation was conducted on Saturday. Daramola says the operation was conducted in an airstrike after a series of intelligence and surveillance missions well camouflaged under dense vegetation in the area. It says the task force will sustain efforts to completely destroy all remnants of the terrorists in the northeast. The Socio-Economic and Accountability Project has taken the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, to court over his refusal to disclose names and details of contractors and companies that allegedly collected money for electricity projects but failed to execute them. Serap is asking Fashola to give names of fraudulent contractors starting from the return of democracy in 1999 to 2018. Serap initially gave Fashola 14 days to publish the names and companies The organization says publishing the names would make it hard for contractors and companies to get away with complicity in grant corruption. The organization says the citizens have a right to see that Freedom of Information Act is enforced where there is an infraction of the right of information. The suit is asking the courts to compel Fashola to compile and make available the documents containing the names of those who have allegedly stolen from Nigeria through electricity contracts. And President of Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has made it public that premium motor spirits that will be refined from Dangote Refinery will not be sold at federal government's regulated price. Dangote said the product to be sold at export rate. He said the price of exports is what the company will sell, which will depend on what the market is internally, and in the case of subsidy, the government would need to work on that. Coming up, African stories. Red Sea nations on high low-cost alerts following past threats. And later, international news. EU says no renegotiation of Brexit deal already reached with Britain.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get it photo send. Now because you dey use Palasa, your phone no dey answer. See me see wahala. My brother, go get smartphone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no go for your hand, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone. Phone wey no fit take selfie. Drop that Palasa phone. No be correct phone, yeah. Drop that Palasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it not for your hand, that's Palasa phone.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and African Stories. At least 11 persons have been killed and several wounded in a car bomb at a shopping mall in Mogadishu, Somalian capital on Monday. A car loaded with explosives has blown up in a busy market area. Police officer Ahmed says some of the victims died in a building that collapsed as a result of the blast in the Hawamarian market. Also, gunmen shot and killed the head of the Dubai government-owned P&O port operations, Paul Anthony Formosa, in Somalia's Portland region on Monday as he was traveling to the port in Bosaso. A local government official said the Islamic militant group Al-Shabaab has claimed responsibility for the attack. Mogadishu is regularly targeted by Islamic militant group Al-Shabaab that is trying to remove the Western-backed central government and establish its own rule based on a strict interpretation of Sharia law. A South African National Parks organization has launched a project in Phalaborwa in Limpopo province to combat elephant poaching in Kruger National Park. Project AVRI serves to mobilize resources for the fight against elephant poaching. The honorary rangers and corporate donors have provided the project with a satellite area base in Phalaborwa to ensure rangers can respond quicker to elephant poaching incidents. Kruger National Park has experienced an increase in elephant poaching over the past few years, which increased from 2 elephants in 2014 to 71 in 2018, and there were 19,000 elephants in the Kruger National Park.
In certain parks where South of the Olifants, we have rhino poaching, and north of the Olifants, we have elephant poaching. And therefore, this is putting more strain to the ever-decreasing counter-poaching resources.
Into these ranges, while elephants are not necessarily in danger of going extinct from poaching, they do not want to let the situation deteriorate to a point where elephant poaching is as big a problem as rhino poaching. Therefore, the decision to put measures in place to prevent this now.
Our responsibility, therefore, from here is to ensure that we strengthen the initiative that has been undertaken and make sure we mobilize our communities, because the danger and the threat is not only within the park, but is also outside in the communities amongst our own people. And therefore, we've got a huge responsibility to make sure that we mobilize our communities in support of these initiatives, so that they also taking responsibility to make sure that we are able.
The initiative will also be implemented in other parks, and both government and animal rights activists agree that there is need for ongoing collaboration among interested parties in civil society to stop the damage being done to wildlife. A new highway funded by China was recently completed in Senegal with a 100-kilometer route helping to connect various towns across the country. The highway was built at a cost of $850 million, and it expanded the original 4-lane road into a 6-lane highway, which includes connecting lanes and 4 interchange points. President Macky Sall of Senegal expressed his gratitude to China at the highway's completion ceremony and stressed his hopes to deepen mutual cooperation between the two nations.
Fructueuse et exemplaire relation d'amitié et de coopération qui lie la République populaire de Chine au Sénégal. Excellence, Monsieur l'ambassadeur de Chine, transmettez.
Infrastructural cooperation between Senegal and China had taken a positive turn since the launch of the emerging Senegal Plan in 2015. For this new motorway project, China is providing 85% of the financing. The conflicting parties in Central African Republic have reached a peace deal in Sudan's capital, Khartoum, on the weekend on major issues of difference like power sharing and transitional justice period have been on the negotiation tables. Sudan official Manan Barkett says the draft final agreement will be signed in the CAR capital, Bangui, on Wednesday, in presence of leaders of CAR's neighboring countries. Khartoum has been hosting peace talks between the CAR government and 14 opposition factions since last month to end years of conflict in the CAR between Muslim-majority Senegal Armed and the anti-Balaka militia group said to be composed primarily of Christians. Nigeria has begun stepping up its measures to control the Lassa fever outbreak in the country that has already claimed the lives of 42 persons since January. Lassa fever has become an annual occurrence in the country and proven to be one of the most significant threats to Nigeria's healthcare system.
So in the first 4 weeks of this year, we've had more cases of Lassa fever detected. We had 70 cases in the last 2 weeks, consecutively more cases than during the same period last year. So we're now focusing on the response, focusing on supporting the states that have a higher burden, make sure they're well prepared to prevent, detect, and respond to Lassa in our country.
Nigeria recorded the highest reported cases in the history of the disease in last year. The World Health Organization is scaling up its response to the outbreak by collaborating with tertiary health institutions to strengthen the rapid containment of the disease.
We've galvanized efforts in responding to any outbreak of Lassa fever. We have a very strong team here of specialists in infectious disease who have managed Lassa over the years.
In Plateau State, 8 deaths have been reported and over 40 confirmed cases recorded so far. The state government has started a sensitization and awareness program for health workers and community leaders to prevent the spread of the disease. Locust alerts have been raised in Egypt and Sudan, where other swarms are expected. Locust swarms are threatening Red Sea nations, and Saudi Arabia was the first to be hit. Egyptian agriculture pest control units have traveled to southern Egypt to purge the expected locust swarms. Egyptian locust control bases near the Sudanese border has declared a state of emergency. It says pest control teams are spread in the southern part to battle the earliest signs and eliminate them immediately as they appear. Experts say that exceptional rain last October and November have created a perfect environment for locust reproduction during the mating season. Authorities says exploration teams are currently inspecting rain and greenery areas to eradicate the pest from their source nest. Ground and air control teams are on standby, and the government has instructed farmers in the area to prepare their pesticides against possible attacks. In 2013, Egypt saw its largest locust swarm in decades. Some estimated 30 million locusts had invaded Cairo, the Delta, and Egyptian desert. That has created the expertise and infrastructure that made Egypt quite prepared for this anticipated attack. When we return, international news. EU says no renegotiation of Brexit deal already reached with Britain. And latest sport, Imama Amakpakabo replaces Salusi Yusuf as coach of the national under-23 team.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby. We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward. Wait, stop. You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down, keep walking to the left. Yes. You're almost here. Keep going. You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and International Stories. The European Union appears to be steadfast in its decision not to renegotiate its Brexit deal with the United Kingdom. French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian is referring that on Monday when he told a French radio station in an interview that there would be no question of going back on the withdrawal deal. They said the two sides have found themselves between a rock and a hard place, and it has become very difficult to find a way out of the current impasse regarding the Irish backstop. The French minister said it was up to the Britons to decide whether they wanted to hold a second referendum on whether to leave the European Union. Sunday was a historic day in the Roman Catholic Church as the world leader of the church, Pope Francis, became the first pontiff ever to visit the Arabian Peninsula. Just hours before landing in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, the Pope has issued the strongest condemnation of the war in Yemen, in which his host, United Arab Emirates, plays a leading role. The aim of the Pope's visit to the UAE is to foster interfaith dialogue. He has urged warring sides in Yemen to implement a peace deal. Shortly before departing for Abu Dhabi, UAE's capital, the Pope said he was following with great concern the humanitarian crisis in Yemen. Pope Francis used his regular Sunday address in Vatican City to urge all sides to not only implement the peace deal, but also to help in delivering aid to millions of hungry people. Pope Francis was greeted on arrival by Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The death toll from the collapse of the dam holding back mining waste in southeastern Brazil has risen beyond 120. Rescue officials say more than 200 persons are missing, and Lieutenant Pedro Alhara of the Manjaro State Fire Department says some bodies may never be found under the tons of mud was swept through a rural area of Brumadinho. O'Hara says the recovery mission will last more than a month and that no date has been set on when to call it off. He also said environmental condition and the decomposition of the bodies found will help determine when the search will end. No one has been found alive since the day after the collapse a week ago. Bahamian officials are reporting that a boat smuggling Haitian migrants has sunk off the coast of the Bahamas. 28 persons are reported dead and 17 others are in police custody. Chief Petty Officer Jonathan Rowley of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force says residents of the island of Abaco have found 4 bodies and at least 15 persons in coastal waters on Saturday. On Sunday, Bahamian Force and the U.S. Coast Guard launched a search operation during which they found at least 28 bodies in and around the sunken ship. Rowley says the ship appeared to be an American vessel engaged in people smuggling, but gave no further information. The Royal Bahamas Defense Force says it has apprehended at least 300 Haitians in 4 smuggling incidents so far this year. Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido has called on more members of the military to abandon the country's socialist government following Saturday's defection of a high-ranking general. Meanwhile, President Nicolas Maduro has proposed to hold early National Assembly elections that could potentially oust his challenger. Maduro's call for early legislative voting is likely to intensify a standoff with rival Guaido, who holds or heads the opposition-controlled National Assembly and is demanding a new presidential election. Guaido declared himself Venezuela's legitimate president, a ruler a week ago, and has the support of Washington and most South American nations. Guaido has told reporters he would keep his opposition movement in the street until Maduro stopped usurping the presidency and agreed to a presidential election overseen by international observers. Tens of thousands of Venezuelans joined the opposition protest against Maduro in Caracas and other cities on Sunday. Up next, sports. Nigeria Under-23 team gets new coach. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space, just like my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News and Sport. El Kanemi Warriors of Nigeria coach Imama Amakpakabo has been confirmed as the interim manager of Nigeria's Under-23 national team. Amakpakabo will replace suspended Salisu Yusuf. Is an ex-international goalkeeper and would lead the new-look dream team for the Africa Under-23 Cup of Nations qualifier against Libya. Nigeria's flag bearer Rangers began the group stage of the CAF Confederation Cup on a very good note. They defeated Sanitas FC of Burkina Faso 2-0, and many are optimistic that with this great start, Rangers might just become the first Nigerian team to win the CAF Confederation Cup. And that is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website ANNAfrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatide. Have a pleasant day.